What's going on, gamers? So, yeah, this article just went up. We got a lot here. Hermen Hulst, live service, the picture of Concord, and it's a lot of stuff to talk about here. Telling you, there's so much news in this world, man. All right, here we go. We ready for this? It's gonna get interesting. Hermen Hulst says the number of live service releases is not so important, and that PlayStation have learned from the failure of Concord. I'm gonna stop right there. If they still release fair game, I disagree. And in order for you to say that you have learned from the failure of Concord, that means that all the rest of your live service operations are at least going to have some type of success, and you're not going to cancel anything. And that you're not going to do modern goose chases, and you're going to get back to being Sony, but making it the Sony method. I think that would be better. But let's see, right? I don't want teams to play it safe, but I would like for us, when we fail, to fail early and cheaply. I understand what he's saying by that. The number of live service releases is not so important. Well, when you cancel 12, I would say so. That is pretty important, Hermen Hulst, because then that means that there could have been potential single-player games. No, I do not agree with that. What is important to me is having a diverse, shut up with that, man, because, dude, everything, diverse set of player experiences and a set of communities. No, what's important to me is you just keep making really good video games and don't focus on any of that dumb bullshit. Just make a good video game. There you go again. You see what I mean? Stop with that. Yeah, it's just not going to work. We have since put in place much more rigorous and more frequent testing in very many different ways, which is good. That's not bad. The advantage of every failure is that people now understand how necessary that oversight is. Well, you should know what not to do again. You know what I mean? Only slow people keep doing things and not learning from it. You know what I mean? Whereas the most intelligent and wisest can learn real quick from somebody else and not do it. And then the person that made the mistake, so yeah, I won't make that mistake again, don't worry. And then that they barely might, because they have that potential. And then the slow people, you got to get rid of them because they just keep on doing the same thing over and over again without realizing they need to stop. So at least they're very quick on that, because Concord should be a very serious thing. Like that should have terrified them. We take a very intentional approach to IP creation. Cool, but remember what you built for a long period of time and keep that balance. Understanding how a new concept can turn into an iconic franchise for PlayStation. That can then again become a franchise for people beyond gaming. Well, everything started like that, Hermen Hulst. You know what I'm saying? So I get what you're saying, but just don't forget about the ones that you did have like that you've been ignoring, that's been in front of you this whole time, that you could have easily had as part of one of those live service or gas titles, or just a game that was online, or a good amount of balance of AAA and AA games with all those PlayStation IPs, and testing the water with these new IPs, not just all going new like that in a live service. That's insanity. And he was a part of some of that stuff with Jim Ryan. Some stuff he greenlit, like, this is his idea. And being obsessed with Horizon too much. Look, I platinum both. You guys have seen that, but I think that they would have been better off focusing on a Killzone live service than Horizon. That would have been a way to bring it back in some way and had it be badass. Sony just has, like I said, they have the PS3 library, the PS2, and they have stuff there where it's like you didn't even really need to worry about that. You would have been fine. But of course, you don't want to do that. You want to just do the most ridiculous thing, nitro speed gas rush. Like I said, off the cliff, Fast and Furious style. Jim Ryan, yeah. So Genki goes down here and he links where this goes to. But you know what? This is what I think about that site, because it's paywalled. You know what I'm saying? You try to go there, right? Oh no, we want you to pay me. So you know what I did, guys? I found out they posted some stuff over here, and I found it for you guys on Resetterla. Thank you, Edos. He's awesome. So let's go ahead and read this. Let me get off the screen real quick so we can zoom in and kind of read this together. Let's go, hold on. All right. This is where everything is at, so we can get the whole thing here and get through the highlights, because we want to know some things. So yeah, I know you do. Okay, so this is where everything starts right here, guys. According to interviews with more than 10 of Sony's top game executives, 10 top executives. Sony is building a vast games empire. Can it keep control? We see this? Guys, we know an empire also means expansion. Oh yeah, come on, we already knew this. According to the interviews with more than 10 of Sony's top game executives, designers, and studio founders, the company is trying to balance creation and control in a business that is central to the Tokyo-based group's strategy. Japan's getting back control. Good. Sony is seeking to ensure that its first-party studios, 20 standalone groups that make games exclusively for its PlayStation console, contribute more to overall revenue growth and take measured risk, all without squashing the independence each studio demands to produce hits. So the interesting thing about this is that it's pretty much what we've just been talking about, and getting more revenue growth and taking risks and not playing it safe and expanding out with the live service. I don't want teams to always play it safe. We've seen him saying this, right? First-party studios brought in a small slice of Sony's gaming network and revenues worth $32 billion last year. Guys, did we see this? $32 billion revenue. But executives said that they carry outsized importance as they define the unique personality of PlayStation. They provide the games and characters that mark the console out from Microsoft's Xbox and Nintendo Switch. What? Hulst said that he wants Sony Studios to think big in the search for new blockbusters. But he adds that the company is putting in more safeguards to limit the impact of inevitable failures. The effort has been magnified by the collapse of Concord, developed by Fireworks Studios, which Sony had in 2023. So we see this is a thing that's going to hunt them for a while, but it should. Good. Do better. That's not bad. When Concord was released in September last year, the market was already saturated by similar and cheaper offerings. The game was shut down after only 2 weeks following poor sales and reviews. Fireworks Studios was closed soon after. Analysts suggest Concord costs upwards of $250 million to make. That expensive demise appears to have led a change in strategy. Hulst downplayed a previous target, pushed by former PlayStation boss Jim Ryan, of releasing 10 or more live service games by March of next year. Sony canceled plans for some high-profile live service attempts, such as The Last of Us, which was actually good. The number of live service releases is not so important, what is important to me is a diverse set of player experiences. Remember when he said that? And that's what I was saying. You can't say that when you miss that many windows. You could have had a golden generation. Talk about the profit they had now. Imagine if all that was successful. See? We have since put in place much more rigorous and more frequent testing, which we know they're going to be doing. So, studio bosses, this is what we didn't see, said this oversight includes more focus on group testing, encouragement to learn from what others in the Sony family are doing, and closer relationships between the top executives who clock hundreds of hours of gameplay ahead of titles going live. So now Sony has made a group testing aspect. We see what they're doing with the dev kits. We see they're doing live service operations. Yeah, these new guys definitely do have a lot of stuff in operation here. This is actually pretty interesting. I can't say that I can hate on this. I'm not going to. I like this. Except some of the stuff that Hulst says where it's like, dude, really? Like, okay. And then he just kind of like goes back to the blockbuster world again. Okay. The ways in which a studio is different might not all be helping you make great games, said Chris Zimmerman, co-founder of Seattle-based Sucker Punch. The studio behind the Ghost Yosei, there were no boundaries enacted by Sony on how they developed a sequel. That's good. But if we're heading towards a giant landmine, like there's another studio making exactly the same game, that's good information, said Jason Cano, Sucker Punch's art director. Okay, I get what they mean by that. They want their studios to be like that. That Concord has forced them to learn their lessons as the silver lining. I hope so. We'll see. Sony's in a great position to capitalize long-term if they focus on the kind of games that make them different and successful. Hulst said he wants studios and incentivized by profit sharing to also think about how the intellectual property they generate can be turned into bigger franchises core to Sony's shift to an entertainment-led company. Profit sharing, intellectual property, generating and turning the franchises even bigger. That makes sense. Yeah, it just looks like they want to expand and get as much profit as possible and make it easy for the developer, simplify development as we're seeing here. For the previous video I did before. So this is what Sony's doing. This has been achieved previously with titles like Last of Us, Uncharted, and a vast story of animated Sony has acquired. So they're not talking about live service here. They're talking about single player games in this aspect, as we see right here. And they made it clear right here by making that the statement. We take a very intentional approach to IP creation. We've seen this before. And, oh yeah, oh, okay, hold on. Let's finish this. We didn't get this part right here. That wasn't in that, right over here. Sony's pitch to studios is that it will insulate them from the financial pressure faced by independents by providing the resources to build bigger operations. Yeah. You know how I say games are too expensive? The way they're trying to expand out, get more money from other platforms? Yeah, this also proves too that they're going to be expanding out more. It was a little bit scary, they said. Being bought by a bigger company feels like you're just about to be swallowed by this bigger fish. But it was more like we still get to still function like a smaller studio. Both with access to the resources. These are people, they have a house marquee. But industry insiders note that these studios remain dependent on their parents' group decisions around hardware, especially in the face of Nintendo's success with the hybrid Switch, and are exposed to shareholder demands for continued revenue growth. This has led to fears that pressure on studios such as Team Asobi could lose what brought them success in the first place. A tightly knit, 60-strong team able to work rapidly. I think that intimacy is really hard to replicate if you would like to grow to like 200, 350 people, said Asobi's art director. The issue creates a dilemma for Astrobot's makers and Sony's other studios. How to be aligned with the Japanese group's wider ambitions while keeping its own distinct identity intact. I get what they mean, rather than just being identified as to make super Western games and live service profiles, agendas and stuff like that. I can get that. So yeah, Hermen, yeah, hoping that the number is not so important to be a good side. Let's take a look at some of these comments real quick. He killed what could have been the best console ever. It needs to go ASAP. I can't say that's not true. Jim Ryan was #1, but apparently they have some, I guess they have some more use for that guy, right? Because that's what it seems like. But, you know, you guys can come read this. Honestly, we don't really have to do that. But basically, out of all of this, we see that Sony is taking this very serious. They have been working every day hard behind the scenes, and they're trying to build something vast like an empire and expand out all these operations, simplifying things for developers with the dev kits that we saw about, right? Putting their games all over the place, sharing some of their games as well too, and trying to get things successful to get to what they really wanted originally without the cancel failures, to get that going for a while. Hey, I'm all for that if they can get it going and everybody's winning and things turn out for the best. And they say they've learned their mistake from Concord. They're not going to make that mistake again. So we're seeing all these things here. Let me know what you guys think about this. Ponies, relax. All right, y'all. Peace out. Have a great day. Later.